The discovery in the deep. The ice groaned around Sarah Chen as she guided her exploration pod deeper into Europa's frozen depths. 20 years of engineering experience hadn't prepared her for what the scanners had picked up 3 days ago. A perfectly geometric structure buried 15 kilometers beneath the moon's surface. The structure's energy signature pulsed with an alien rhythm that defied every known law of physics. "Control, I'm approaching the anomaly now," Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the mounting pressure against the pod's reinforced hull. Confirming thermal readings consistent with initial scans. Whatever this is, it's been keeping itself warm for a very long time. "Copy that, Sarah," Dr. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. "Remember, observation only. No direct contact until we get a full analysis of the structure's composition." Sarah smiled to herself. After 15 years of working together, Marcus still felt the need to remind her of basic protocols. But this was different. They both knew it. This wasn't another ice sample or thermal vent. This was the first evidence of non-terrestrial intelligence humanity had ever encountered. The pod's lights illuminated a massive wall of dark metal, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Sarah's instruments indicated the structure was at least 1 kilometer in diameter, far larger than anything humanity had built on Europa. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" Sarah adjusted the pod's external cameras. "The surface patterns, they're responding to our presence. The material appears to be some kind of programmable matter." Before Marcus could respond, a deep resonance filled the pod, vibrating through Sarah's bones. The wall before her began to part, revealing a perfectly circular entrance just large enough for her pod to pass through. The invitation was unmistakable. "Sarah, pull back now," Marcus ordered, his voice tight with concern. "We need to assemble a full team before we—" "No time," Sarah interrupted, her hands steady on the controls. "The entrance is already beginning to close. We might not get another chance." She guided the pod forward, her heart pounding as she crossed the threshold. The passage sealed behind her with a sound like breaking glass, leaving her in near total darkness. Only the pod's lights and the faint bioluminescence of her instruments illuminated the way forward. The tunnel she entered was perfectly smooth, its walls composed of the same shifting material as the exterior. But something was different here. There was a rhythm to the movements, almost like a heartbeat. Sarah's instruments recorded everything, though half of them were giving impossible readings. After what felt like hours, but her chronometer insisted, was only 20 minutes, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Suspended in the center of the space was a crystalline structure that defied description, a geometric nightmare of fractals and impossible angles that hurt her eyes to look at directly. But it was the chains that drew her attention. Massive links of what appeared to be pure energy wrapped around the crystal structure, anchoring it to the chamber walls. They pulsed with a deep blue light that seemed to drain the heat from everything around it. A voice filled her mind, not sound but pure thought. "The new warden arrives at last. We have waited so long." Sarah's instruments went haywire, screens flickering with impossible data. The crystalline structure, no, the entity, shifted slightly, its facets catching the pod's lights and throwing them back in patterns that made Sarah's head spin. Your kind was chosen, shaped, prepared for this moment. "I don't understand." Sarah spoke aloud, knowing somehow that the entity could hear her. "What are you? What is this place?" "I am the Frost Weaver. This is my prison, built by those you would call the Ancients." "And you, Sarah Chen, are descended from their chosen guardians, the wardens who were meant to replace them. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't evolved naturally. They'd been engineered, shaped over millions of years to serve as replacements for some ancient race of jailers. The implications were staggering. The chains weaken, the Frost Weaver continued. The old bindings fail. A choice must be made. Will you take up the mantle for which your kind was created? Or will you break the cycle and face what comes after? Sarah's mind raced. Everything she thought she knew about human history, about their place in the universe, had just been appended. And now this entity was suggesting she had been born to be its jailer. The chains pulsed again, their light dimming slightly. A warning. Whatever decision she had to make, she wouldn't have long to make it. "Why were you imprisoned?" Sarah asked, buying time to think. What crime could justify this? The Frost Weaver's response came with a wave of images that nearly overwhelmed Sarah's consciousness. Worlds frozen solid, entire civilizations trapped in crystal stasis, a hunger that could never be satisfied. "I'm what I am," the entity replied simply. "As you are what you were made to be. The only question is whether you will fulfill your purpose." Sarah looked at the chains, their light growing fainter by the minute. The fate of humanity, perhaps of all life in the solar system, rested on what she decided next. But she was an engineer, trained to solve problems, not a philosopher or a judge. Then again, maybe that's exactly why she had been the one to find this place. "Tell me about the chains," she said finally. "Show me how they work." The Frost Weaver's response was immediate, a flood of technical information that somehow made perfect sense to Sarah's engineering mind. The chains weren't just restraints, they were a complex system of energy regulation and containment. And they were failing not because of age, but because they had been designed to fail at this exact moment. This wasn't just a prison, it was a test. Echoes of the wardens. Sarah's fingers danced across her pod's control panel, recording every detail of the complex energy patterns flowing through the chains. The Frost Weaver's knowledge had unlocked something in her mind, pathways of understanding she'd never known existed. It was as if she'd spent her life looking at engineering problems through frosted glass, and someone had finally wiped it clear. "Marcus, are you receiving this data?" She knew the answer before asking. The chamber's walls blocked all conventional communications. She was alone down here, truly alone, with an entity that had once frozen entire civilizations. "They cannot hear you," the Frost Weaver's thoughts rippled through her mind. The barriers were designed to isolate, to prevent interference when the moment of choice arrived. Sarah studied the nearest chain anchor point, where energy met the chamber's wall. The technology was beyond anything humanity had achieved, yet somehow familiar, like remembering a dream of reading a book written in a language you'd never learned. "Show me the others," she said. "The wardens who came before." The chamber's walls shimmered, and suddenly Sarah was surrounded by echoes. Holographic ghosts of creatures, so alien she could barely comprehend their forms. Some moved like liquid mercury, others seemed to exist in more dimensions than her mind could process. Yet each bore the same marking, a geometric sigil that Sarah realized with a start matched a birthmark on her own shoulder. The makers chose carefully, the Frost Weaver explained. Each species of warden was cultivated over millennia, shaped to understand both justice and mercy. Some chose to maintain the chains. Others chose to break them. And what happened to those who broke them? The images shifted, showing worlds transformed into crystalline wastelands. But something wasn't right. Sarah noticed discrepancies in the recordings, moments where the destruction seemed staged. You're lying, she realized. Or at least, not telling the whole truth. These images, they're manipulated. I can see the artifacts in the data stream. The Frost Weaver's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been appreciation. You see clearly, Sarah Chen. The Maker's modifications run deep in your species. Yes, I have shaped these memories to test you, to see if you would accept them without question. But why? What's the real purpose of all this? Sarah's mind raced through the implications. The chains, the prison, the wardens. It's all too elaborate for simple containment. You're not just a prisoner, are you? The chamber grew colder as the Frost Weaver's form shifted, revealing new facets that seemed to bend light itself. I am prisoner, warden, and test in one. As are you, as were all who came before. The Makers did not create wardens to guard me, Sarah Chen. They created them to replace me. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The entire prison system wasn't designed to contain the Frost Weaver. It was designed to evolve new species capable of taking on its role. But what role was that? Before she could ask, alarms blared throughout her pod. The chamber's temperature was dropping rapidly, frost forming on her viewport. The chains pulsing had become erratic, their steady rhythm replaced by desperate surges of energy. The cycle accelerates. The Frost Weaver's thoughts carried an edge of urgency now. The chains fail not because they are broken, but because they have served their purpose. Your species has reached a necessary threshold. You must choose, Sarah Chen, not whether to free me, but whether to become me. Sarah's engineering mind finally grasped the full scope of what she was seeing. The chains were restraints. They were a transmission system. The Frost Weaver wasn't just a prisoner. It was a mantle of power waiting to be passed on. Every species of warden had been brought here not to maintain the chains, but to be tested for worthiness to inherit what the Frost Weaver controlled. What exactly would I be inheriting? She asked, though part of her already knew the answer. I am the guardian of entropy. The Frost Weaver's response came with a wave of understanding that nearly overwhelmed her. The force that prevents heat death, that maintains the balance between chaos and order in this galaxy. The Makers created me to serve this purpose, but even they knew I could not serve forever. New perspectives are needed, new understanding. The chamber groaned as ice began to form along its walls. The chains flickered dangerously, their light dimming. Sarah checked her pod's systems. She had maybe an hour of life support left at these temperatures. And if I refuse? If humanity isn't ready for this responsibility? Then the cycle continues. Your species will be marked as unworthy, and the Maker's modifications will be undone. Humanity will devolve, forgetting all they have learned of science and engineering. The chains will regenerate, and the test will begin again with another species. Sarah thought of Earth, of the colonies on Mars and Europa. Everything humanity had built, every advancement they'd made, all of it engineered, designed to bring them to this moment. But that didn't make it any less real, any less earned. Her pod's viewport was nearly opaque with frost now. In its reflection, she saw the same sigil that marked the wardens, glowing faintly on her shoulder. She hadn't been chosen for this mission by chance. Perhaps she hadn't made any of her life's choices by chance. But this choice, this one was hers alone. The chains pulsed once more, weakly, like a dying heartbeat. Time was running out. Sarah Chen, engineer of Europa's deep ice facilities, descendant of carefully engineered wardens, faced the moment for which she had been unknowingly prepared her entire life. Behind her, the ghosts of previous wardens shimmered in silent witness. Before her, the Frost Weaver waited, its crystalline form holding both doom and destiny. And all around her, the chains continued their fading rhythm, counting down to a decision that would reshape humanity's future. Breaking points. The temperature in Sarah's pod had dropped to negative 40 degrees when the first transmission from the surface broke through. Marcus's voice, distorted but urgent, crackled through her comms. "Sarah, if you can hear this, you're not alone down there. We're getting reports of similar structures activating across the solar system. Mars, Titan, even beneath Earth's oceans. Something's happening on a massive scale." The Frost Weaver's crystalline form shimmered, reflecting the information displays that had suddenly appeared around them. Each showed another facility, another chamber, another set of failing chains. And in each, a human stood at the threshold of the same choice Sarah faced. "The test is simultaneous," the Frost Weaver explained. "Your species must prove itself worthy as a whole, not through a single representative. What you decide here will resonate with the others. They will feel your choice, even if they don't understand why." Sarah watched the displays, recognizing some of the faces. Dr. Yuki Tanaka at the Martian facility. Commander James Rodriguez beneath the Pacific. Professor Helen Walsh on Titan. All brilliant engineers and scientists, all bearing the same birthmark, all facing the same moment of truth. "How many?" she asked, her breath visible in the freezing air. 7 chambers, 7 choices. 7 aspects of the mantle that must be passed on or rejected. You oversee the balance of thermal energy. Others face decisions about gravity, electromagnetic forces, nuclear bonds, quantum coherence, spatial integrity, and temporal flow. The implications staggered her. The Frost Weaver wasn't just a guardian of cold and heat. It was part of a system that maintained the fundamental forces of the universe itself. And now humanity was being offered the role of cosmic caretaker. "Why us?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Out of all the species in the galaxy, why was humanity chosen? The chamber filled with new images, the entire history of human engineering and innovation played out before her eyes. From the first stone tools to the quantum computers that powered their colonies, she saw humanity's relentless drive to understand, to improve, to build. Sarah's pod beeped a warning. 15 minutes of life support remaining. Around her, the chain's light had dimmed to a faint glow. On the displays, she could see the other chambers reaching similar critical points. A new transmission broke through, this one from Helen Walsh on Titan. "If anyone else is seeing this, the quantum readings are off the scale. These facilities aren't just connected. They're entangled. Whatever we decide together." One by one, the other chosen engineers reported in, their voices carrying the same mix of awe and terror that Sarah felt. They were separated by millions of kilometers, yet united in this moment. The time comes. The Frost Weaver's thoughts carried a finality that made Sarah's spine tingle. But before you choose, you must understand the full price of accepting this mantle. Show her. This last thought seemed directed elsewhere. The chamber shuddered, and suddenly Sarah was no longer in her pod. She stood in open space, watching galaxies wheel above her. But something was wrong. The stars were dying too quickly, entropy accelerating out of control, heat and energy bleeding away into the void. "This is what we prevent," the Frost Weaver explained. "The premature death of everything. Without our intervention, the universe would wind down like a broken clock. We are the mechanics who keep it turning." The vision shifted, showing Sarah what she would become if she accepted. Her human form would be transformed, merged with the same crystalline substance as the Frost Weaver. She would exist outside of normal space-time, eternally vigilant, eternally alone. And if we refuse? If none of us accept? Then the Maker's fail-safe activates. Your species returns to a primitive state, and the cycle begins again with another candidate species. But know this, the current system fails. Without new guardians, the universe itself begins to unravel. You would be condemning countless civilizations to a premature end. Sarah's pod gig its final warming. Around her, the other engineers were facing similar deadlines. The chains had dimmed to almost nothing, their ancient power nearly exhausted. She thought of everything humanity had built, everything they had discovered. They had come so far, achieved so much. But had it all been engineered? Did that make their achievements any less real, their choices any less valid? The displays showed her colleagues wrestling with their own decisions. On Mars, Dr. Tanaka was already reaching for her chamber's controls. Beneath the Pacific, Commander Rodriguez sat in deep meditation. On Titan, Professor Walsh was running final calculations, trying to quantify the unquantifiable. The Frost Weaver's form began to fade, its power draining with the chains. Choose Sarah Chen. Choose for yourself, for your species, for all who will come after. The moment of transition arrives. The price of freedom. Sarah's pod systems had failed completely, frost coating every surface. Only her insulated suit kept her alive as she watched the other chambers through the Frost Weaver's fading displays. One by one, her colleagues were making their choices. On Mars, Dr. Tanaka had accepted her role. Her human form dissolved into pure energy, merging with her chamber's quantum matrix. The Martian facility pulsed with new power as she took control of gravitational forces across the solar system. Beneath the Pacific, Commander Rodriguez chose differently. He activated his chamber's rejection sequence, choosing humanity's freedom over cosmic responsibility. His facility began to power down, the ancient machinery preparing for another millennia of sleep. The other chambers reported similar splits, some accepting, some refusing. The balance teetered on a knife's edge, and Sarah's decision would tip it one way or the other. The pattern fractures. The Frost Weaver's thoughts were growing weaker. This has never happened before. Always, they chose as one, all accepting or all refusing. Your species surprises us once again. Ara watched the transformation of those who accepted. They became like the Frost Weaver, crystalline beings of pure energy, merged with the fundamental forces they now controlled. Their humanity wasn't lost, but transformed into something far beyond flesh and blood. What happens if we split the choice? Sarah asked, her voice hoarse in the freezing air. If some accept and some refuse? The Frost Weaver's form flickered uncertainly. Unknown. The system was not designed for partial transition. Perhaps this is why your species was chosen, to find a third path. New alarms blared across all channels. The rejection of some chambers, while others transformed, was creating instability in the fabric of space-time itself. Reality buckled around them as competing forces clashed. Professor Walsh's voice cut through the chaos from Titan. The quantum field is collapsing. We need to stabilize it or everything falls apart. Sarah's engineering mind raced ahead, seeing the problem and its solution in the same instant. The system wasn't failing, it was evolving. Just as humanity had been engineered to take on this role, perhaps the role itself needed to change. We need to link the chambers, she broadcast to all channels. Those who accepted, focus your energy through the chambers of those who refused. Create a network, not a replacement. Understanding dawned in the Frost Weaver's thoughts. Yes, not succession, but synthesis. Your species need not replace us entirely. You can work alongside us, bringing your unique perspective to the task. The chamber hummed with new energy as Sarah began the activation sequence. But she didn't follow the acceptance protocol exactly. Instead, she modified it, creating a hybrid state that would let her serve as a bridge between the human and cosmic realms. Around the solar system, the other engineers who had refused caught on to our plan. They modified their chambers similarly, creating a web of connection between the fully transformed Guardians and their human allies. The Frost Weaver's form stabilized, then began to strengthen. You found a way we never considered. Instead of passing the mantle, you choose to share it, to create something new. Sarah felt the transformation begin, but it was different from what she'd seen happen to the others. Her human form remained largely intact, but her consciousness expanded. She could feel the flow of thermal energy throughout the solar system, could sense the delicate dance of heat and cold that kept planets habitable and stars burning. Through the network of chambers, she felt the others experiencing similar partial transformations. Each maintained their humanity while gaining the ability to perceive and influence their assigned cosmic force. They would be anchors, connecting the fully transformed Guardians to the human perspective they needed. "How long?" she asked the Frost Weaver. "How long do we serve?" "Until the next evolution comes. But not alone. Never alone again. Your solution ensures that both humanity and the Guardian forces can continue to grow, to change, to find new ways forward." The chamber's temperature began to stabilize as Sarah learned to control her new abilities. The displays showed similar stabilization across all chambers as the network of human anchors and transformed Guardians found their balance. Above on Europa's surface, the science team detected the changes. They couldn't understand exactly what had happened below, but their instruments showed a fundamental shift in how the universe's basic forces operated. It was as if reality itself had found a new equilibrium. Legacy of the Stars. 1 year after the transformation, Sarah Chen stood in her chamber beneath Europa's ice, watching humanity's progress through the crystalline displays. The changes had been subtle at first, small shifts in how technology worked, new insights into the fundamental forces of nature, breakthroughs that seemed to come from dreams and intuitions. The network she had helped create, spanning 7 chambers across the solar system, had become something unprecedented in the universe's history. Not quite human, not quite cosmic, but a bridge between worlds that opened up possibilities the makers had never imagined. They are ready. The Frost Weaver's thoughts mingled with hers, their consciousness having grown closer over the months of working together. "Show them." Sarah nodded, reaching out through the network to her colleagues in the other chambers. Together, they activated the communication protocols they had spent months developing. Across Earth, Mars, and the other colonies, millions of screens lit up with the same message. To humanity, the time has come for truth. The broadcast that followed changed everything. Sarah and her colleagues revealed the full story: humanity's engineered heritage, the cosmic forces that needed guardianship, and the unique solution they had found. But most importantly, they shared what they had learned about humanity's true potential. "We were created to be guardians." Sarah's voice reached across the solar system. "But we became something more. We found a way to maintain our humanity while accepting a greater responsibility. And now we offer you the same choice." The displays showed the response: confusion, fear, wonder, and growing understanding. Humanity had always sensed there was something more, some greater purpose they were reaching for. Now they knew what it was. Professor Walsh's voice joined from Titan. "The network we created can expand. Those who wish to join us, to help maintain the forces that keep our universe alive while remaining human, will have that chance. Not everyone needs to choose this path. That's the beauty of what we've discovered. We can be both human and more than human." The Frost Weaver's consciousness rippled with approval. Your species continues to surprise us. What we thought was an ending has become a beginning. Over the next few months, the first volunteers came forward. Scientists, engineers, dreamers. People drawn to the idea of touching the cosmic while keeping their human hearts. The network grew, each new member adding their unique perspective to the greater whole. Dr. Tanaka, fully transformed on Mars, found she could share her gravitational insights with human partners, creating advances in space travel that would have been impossible before. Commander Rodriguez, who had chosen to remain fully human, became a crucial interpreter between the cosmic and human realms. Sarah herself found a new balance. In her hybrid state, she could step between worlds, sometimes fully human, walking the ice corridors of Europa Station, other times merged with the thermal forces that kept the solar system's delicate heat balance in check. She was neither destroyed nor replaced, but evolved. The Maker's original plan had been succession, one species replacing another in an eternal chain of cosmic guardianship. Instead, humanity had created collaboration, a network of minds and powers working together across the boundaries of space, time, and consciousness itself. The chains are gone, the Frost Weaver observed one day, as they watched a new volunteer join the network. Not broken, but transformed like everything else. Sarah touched the sigil on her shoulder, now a shimmering mark that shifted between physical and energy states. We all carry the chains now, but they don't bind us, they connect us. The chamber, once a prison, had become a classroom, a transformation center, a bridge between realities. The other chambers too had evolved, each adapting to humanity's new vision of cosmic guardianship. As Sarah watched another group of volunteers prepare for their partial transformation, she felt the weight of the future. Humanity would spread to the stars, carrying with them this new understanding of their place in the universe. They were not meant to be replacements or prisoners, but partners in the greatest engineering project of all, maintaining the fundamental forces of reality itself. The Frost Weaver's consciousness merged briefly with hers, sharing a vision of the centuries to come. Humanity would face new challenges, encounter other species, find new ways to balance their dual nature as cosmic guardians and curious explorers. But they would face it all together, bound not by chains of imprisonment, but by bonds of choice and purpose. In the end, Sarah realized, the true test had never been about worthiness to replace the guardians. It had been about finding a new way forward, about proving that consciousness could evolve without losing its original nature. Humanity had passed not by following the plan, but by transcending it. As the chamber hummed with energy, preparing for another transformation ceremony, Sarah smiled. The chains that had bound the Frost Weaver for centuries had been transformed into bridges, and across those bridges, humanity would walk into a future that was neither fully cosmic nor fully human, but wonderfully, perfectly both. The end.